So, what is a loss of motion lesson? What is a force? An agency which enables a body to be pushed or pulled. Agency to push or pull, which changes the states of rest or uniform motion or the direction of motion of body is known as force. Okay. So, if a body is at rest, if you want to change it to be in the state of motion, you have to apply force. A body is uniformly moving. You want it to be at rest, you have to apply force. If you're going in one direction, you want to change the direction of motion, then you have to apply force. So the agency is to push or pull the body so that the body changes from its state of rest or uniform motion or the direction of motion. Aristotle initially considered that every body will be at rest, okay, and which is not true. We know the earth keeps moving, the moon keeps moving, revolving around the earth, and the earth keeps revolving around the sun. Every body by nature state is moving, but he said it's at rest, and he said an external force is necessary to make it moving. Then Galileo came and said that no, it's not true. If a body is at rest, it means because of the frictional force it's at rest. So you need an applied force only if there's a frictional force. Otherwise, the body's natural state will be moving state. That is what Galileo termed as Aristotle's fallacy. Then Galileo did various experiments like this, where he made a ball roll down the inclined plane and roll up the inclined plane with speed increases and decreases. And so he considered it to be a flat plane, and he said it's going to be constant speed. Then he took an inclined plane like this, where there is a descents and then ascends, and it doesn't exactly go to the other side and reach the same height, but it tries to, because some amount of energy is lost in the form of friction, but it tries to reach the same height. And because of this effort, when he makes this right slope less slopey, you see that the ball went to a longer distance. He noticed that the ball went for a longer distance in order to reach the same height. Therefore he considered that if it's flat, the ball will go infinite distance in order to try to reach the same height, and thus it becomes a flat surface, and so it is uniform velocity. So then next is inertia. Inertia is always related to mass in physics. It's a property by virtue of which a body resists to any change. Is a change of rest, if it resists to any change like state of rest or state of motion or state of direction. If it's at rest, it will continue to be at rest. If it's at motion, it will continue to be at motion. If it's going in one direction, it will continue to go in that direction. That resistance to change is what is called inertia. And the Newton's first law, okay, is all related to all these inertia belongs to Newton's first law. Okay, so what is inertia at rest? A body continues tendency to be at rest. So then if it's moving, if a body is suddenly moving, if a bus is suddenly moving, the body tends to be at rest because it is used to being at rest. So resist motion. So tendency to be at rest and resist motion is called inertia of rest. Inertia of motion is tendency to be moving. If the bus is moving, your body keeps moving, and suddenly bus comes to a standstill, your body refuses to come to standstill, it goes forward. It's known as moment of inertia. It's known as inertia of motion. Inertia of direction is like when a car takes a right turn, your body goes towards the left. It moves away from the centripetal force. That's known as inertia of direction. So there are many other examples that I've specified, such as dusting the carpet. For inertia of rest, you dust the carpet moves, the dust doesn't move, so it falls down. And shake a tree, the tree branches move, but the mango does not move because it has inertia at rest, and so then inertia of rest, and so then the mango falls. And so then many examples. Inertia of motion, I'm also giving an athlete running and taking a long jump because his body tends to be in motion, it resists to come to a stop, and so he invariably takes a longer leap. And inertia of direction is this, and inertia of direction we can give many other examples such as below. If you see, I've spoken about this inertia of direction, where a stone tied to a rope and is revolved around the thread is cut. It moves tangentially. The stone moves tangentially and flies off. It shows that that's inertia of direction. Similarly, the wheel on a rainy day, if you see the cycle going before you, will spread. The mud will go tangentially like this. Here that shows that inertia of direction. These are all examples of inertia of direction. And so let's come back to what is momentum. Momentum is mass into velocity. It's called linear momentum, and so it's called mass into velocity, which is kg meter per second. It's not second squared. As you can see, it's velocity meter per second. I made a mistake, just correct it. And you just coming across learning about momentum, which is a rifle from which a bullet flies off to hit the target. The bullet has a lesser mass, whereas the rifle has a greater mass, and all the more you're placing it on the shoulder of the person, so that the recoil velocity doesn't come and hit on the shoulder. So then the mass of the gun and the mass of the man together constitute a bigger mass, but the velocity of the recoil will be less, whereas the mass of the bullet is negligible, will have greater velocity, it's able to pierce through the body. And thus you know that the velocity and mass are inversely proportional. From this, the velocity is less, the mass is less, the velocity is more. So then this the velocity versus mass graph that I've plotted here is a reciprocal graph. Can you see? And look at these two graphs. This is the momentum versus velocity graph. When you do a momentum versus p, you know, p is proportional to v and p is equal to m into v, where m is a constant, so it's a linear graph. Okay, so as you know, if m is a constant, the momentum increases as velocity increases. That's what it means. And similarly, this p is proportional to m, which means v is a constant here. You know, which means the variables are mass and momentum. The mass and momentum are changing, but the velocity is still remaining constant. You see, the mass is changing, the momentum is changing, but the velocity still remains constant. An example is a smaller body and a bigger body. A greater mass and a smaller mass is getting dropped down. They're due to different masses, right? The mass is varying, but still the velocities will be same. So then it is independent of the mass of the body. So in this case, so the different cases in which we are looking at, there's a case where the mass and the velocity is inversely proportional, but there's a case where the momentum and mass are linearly proportional, so like that. So every body continues to be in its first law, every body continues to be in state of rest or uniform motion unless an external force acts on it. The second law is the rate of force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum, which is a change in momentum v minus u by t itself is a, so mass into acceleration. So then the force applied directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. That's the second law. Third law is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's between two bodies. It's obviously between two bodies. Okay. So then this I already finished. Let's go to second law. You know that the force is proportional to rate of change of momentum and mass into acceleration. And you know the change in the momentum is going to be occurring in the same direction as the change in force. So what happens if there is no force acting on the body, which means no force A is 0, which means force is 0, A is 0, because mass cannot be 0, A is 0. A is 0, acceleration is 0, means the body is moving with a uniform velocity. So let's come to next thing, which is about SI unit of Newton, of force is Newton, which is kg meter per second square, and it's also 1 Newton is 10 to the power 5 dyne, and 1 dyne itself is 1 gram centimeter per second square. So then it's Newton's second law, which is a rate of change of momentum. Force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. In the rectangular components, you know, rectangular components or rectangular form, which means component form. So as I said, ijk with fx, fy, fz, and p with an xyz with ijk, and acceleration with xyz and ijk. And you know, f is dp by dt, where d by dt of mass into velocity. You know, rate of change of momentum can be also written as a differentiation of dp by dt. So which is mass into velocity. Mass is a constant dv by dt, which is a. So thus you get the same formula. You can also express it f as dp by dt, which is d by dt of px. P itself is pxi plus pyj plus pyzk from here, and p itself is mass into velocity. So mbx plus mby plus mbz with i's, j's, and k's, and if you take m common, you get dvx by dt, differentiate velocity by t, which is acceleration, dvy by dt, ayj, dvz by dt, which is azk, and so on. So that's about it. And the most important thing written about second law is, you know, a force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. In the absence of external force, acceleration is 0, which means the body is moving with a constant velocity. I've already said this. This is what happens in the absence of external force. And next is consequence of Newton's second law. You know, if the two forces are equal by acting on two bodies, m1 a1 is equal to m2 a2, because forces are equal. You can say m1 by m2 is equal to a2 by a1, which shows that if the mass is more, the acceleration is less, and because the force is just the same. If the force is going to be same, that's what is going to occur, right? So then that's when the force is the same, the larger acceleration produced by the lighter body. So that concludes it. And what is the condition which acceleration can occur? Acceleration can occur. Now acceleration becomes 0 if we just saw external force. The acceleration becomes 0 if the body is moving with a constant velocity. We saw that in the previous case. Okay, now the acceleration can occur if the body's velocity is changing. Velocity changing means its direction can change, its speed can change. It's not necessary. One of its changes also you can say velocity is changing. For example, in a rotational motion, the speed is uniform, but the velocity keeps on changing because the direction keeps on changing. And so then the acceleration occurs, which is centripetal acceleration, as you know. So then therefore an acceleration acceleration can occur if the velocity changes. The velocity change can mean either the speed changes or the direction changes. So these are the sums. As you can see, the bullet of 0.04 kg moving with the speed of 90 meter per second enters a heavy wooden block, and it stopped after a distance of 60 centimeter, which is after traveling 0.60 centimeter is coming to a stop. So final velocity is 0. It shows that, and the initial velocity is velocity with which is coming, which is 90 meter per second, which is u itself. And you know the distance has been given, so you can find the retardation. What is the average resistive force exerted by the block on the bullet? You find the retardation using this. And once you find retardation, you put F is equal to m into a, where m is the mass of the block and the retarding acceleration, which will give you the force. Next is two forces are given, 5 root 2 newtons and 6 root 2 newtons on the body of mass 100,000 kg. So it's acting on a body of mass 1000 kg, but the forces are inclined at an angle 60 degree. You know that you can want to find acceleration, velocity after 10 seconds. You can first find the resultant force. If this is F1 and this is F2, you can see that there's a parallelogram law of vectors. Let me write that. Why it's not writing? Yeah, F1 and F2 simply shows that you can do a resultant force by using parallelogram law of vectors, which is root of F1 square plus F2 square plus 2 F1 F2 cos 60, and substituting the respective values, you get the answer. Once you know force, F is equal to m into a is equal to F by m, you can find the acceleration that they've asked you to find. And once you find the acceleration, you want to find velocity, you know, v is equal to u plus at, where u is 0 because initially the body is at rest. Okay, that's not given, but that's understood, right? A force is acting on a body of mass 1000 kg, the body is at rest, so you know a and you know the time taken, so you can find the velocity. And once you do that, you can find the distance through which the body is moving. S is equal to ut plus half a square, again taking initial velocity to be 0 and half into acceleration into t square. You can know how much distance would have traveled. So what is impulse? Impulse, you know that the cricketer catches the ball, he moves the hand backward to increase the time so that force is less on his hand. Another example that I gave for impulse, opposite example is the blowing a hammer on the nail, where you hit it so that the time is less, the force is more, so that the nail is able to pierce through the wall. So these are the good examples of impulse, and the SI unit is Newton second because it's force into time. The fact that it's force into time, can you do a graph, and you know if it's constant force into time, its area of this rectangle will give you your impulse itself. But if it's in the case of an unequal force, you know, a non-uniform force, you have to do integration where you have to take an infinitesimally small rectangle of width dt, and the rectangle's area is f into dt, and integrated from a lower limit of t1 to an upper limit of t2, and this is how we write impulse as. So you get the area under this whole graph finally, which will give you your impulse. Impulse, another example, is a shocker in an automobile where the time of jerk is increasing, the force of the passenger is less. The buffer between the bogies increases the time of jerk, the force of the passenger is less the train. So a batsman hits a ball back. Can you see a bat is here and the ball is hit back with the same velocity with which it's coming. It's coming with the velocity of 12 meter per second. It also goes back with the velocity of 12, but I would say going back is minus 12 and coming is 12 because coming towards is 12 positive direction, and so you know final velocity is minus 12, and impulse itself is, you know, impulse formula is force into time. You can also say that impulse formula is change in velocity, change in momentum, p final minus p initial. So that's what I'm using here, p final minus p initial. I know the velocity, mass, v and u, minus 12 minus 12. So then you get the negative sign of impulse, which shows that the impulse is in the opposite direction to the initial direction. The initial direction, ball was coming towards the right, and the impulse is in this direction. That's what it means, negative x direction. A rubber ball of mass 50 grams falls from a height of 1 meter and rebounds to a height of 0.5 meters. So the first step is the ball comes down. You know that mass is given and its height is given, and you know initial velocity is 0. You can find the final velocity with which it's going to hit the floor. Now it's going to rebound. You don't know the initial velocity with which it's rebounding, but you know the final velocity gets to 0 in the second. And you know distance through it is moved to 0.5, with which you can again find, using v square minus u square is 2as, you can find what is the initial velocity. Once you know this final velocity and you know this initial velocity, you know these two, you know, then impulse is all about what is happening in the floor. It's a change in p in final minus p initial. So you take this velocity that you found is the final velocity, and this velocity that you found here becomes the initial velocity. So it's p final minus p initial is m into this final velocity minus initial velocity. Substitute that, you get the value of impulse. So it's very easy. Impulse is all about what is happening on the floor. So this final velocity becomes your initial velocity, and this rebounding velocity that you got is your final velocity. And so then this itself is a final velocity in this travel, you know, and this itself is the initial velocity in this travel. And so you should understand that, and you should write, okay, so then a ball moving with a momentum of 5 kg per meter per second, meter per second strikes the wall. So look at this diagram, it strikes the wall, and it's straight, it goes like that and strikes it and rebounds, then you know that the initial velocity is I know the sum does not have that. Okay, it seems to be saying that 45 degrees is the angle that's inclined. So if it's inclined an angle 45 degree and it's striking, it's going also getting reflected back at the same angle. Can you see here? Yeah, it's here 45 degree. Break it down into components. As I said, the blue, the p, the incident p momentum gets broken down into blue color p sine 45 and p cos 45, and the final momentum with which it's going to go away, you know, the velocity is same, and yeah, the ball has the momentum 5 kg strikes and reflected back. Calculate the change in momentum. Okay, but it's reflected back with the same velocity. Does it been given? Because for me to take this as p, has that been given? A ball moving at a momentum 5 kg meter per second strikes a wall at an angle of 45 degree and is reflected back at the same angle. It's reflected back at the same angle. We are taking it as same momentum too, but the direction of the momentum is different. We're taking it as p and break this down into components. You see that this is negative. P sine 45 is also negative. This p sine 45 is also negative. So the final minus initial is minus p sine 45, a minus of minus p sine 45. So it is getting cancelled, you know. So then therefore the vertical components getting resolved becomes 0. The horizontal component will get added, so it becomes like this. So I'm sure you understood. Okay, so then let's go to the same thing I have explained once again. And third law is about every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The force exerted by A on B is equal to the force exerted by B on A, but is equal and opposite, so that signifies the negative sign. So it's between two bodies, so they will never cancel out. So they can never cancel out each other, you know, it's between two bodies. So look at this, a block is kept on a table and the weight is downward, the normal reaction is upward, and R is equal to minus W. And knowing about normal reaction, you know, you press the feet like that. You know, you can see a diagram of the feet. It looks bad, but so the applied force, you're pressing the feet so that the normal reaction is in this direction, the right side, gets broken to r cos theta and r sin theta. R sin theta will count to the mg, so you can forget about r sin theta. The r cos theta is the component which helps you to move forward. It helps you to move forward. So then if there's a sand, you're not going to be pressing it. Because if you press it, the sand also moves. It's not strong enough to give enough reaction, so you can't move forward. The slippery ground, you are not even going to be able to press it. So then no normal reaction, and since you can't move forward. A nail is able to pierce through the wooden block. If you are able to firmly fix it, you hold it with your hand and press it. So there will be a normal reaction to it, and so then it will be able to pierce through. Otherwise, if you bang on it, the nail will move. Your hand will move. You might also get your hands hurt and fingers hurt. Swimming, a person pushes the water backward in order to move forward. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction. A horse and cart problem. A horse here, can you see on the right hand side you have a horse which is pulling the cart, and supposing this friction, the purple color line is the friction here, the left side. Okay, and the connecting thread between this and this will always have a tension like this and tension like this, whereas when it's connected to the roof there is only one tension. Please be very clear with it. Okay, so there's a tension here and tension here, and you know that we're going to take a free body diagram. If it's going to accelerate to the right, the horse is going to pull, the acceleration is going to happen to the right. You know, the acceleration of the horse is also A, the acceleration of the cart is also A towards the right. And so you have to take a free body diagram here, and so you can say that H minus T is equal to mass of the horse into, let's keep the mass of the horse as small m into A. You know, that's what I would have written here. You have to take a necessarily free body diagram. Look down, can you see H minus T is equal to mass into acceleration, where m is the mass of the horse. Whereas you look at the right side, you know, it's T minus a frictional force is equal to capital M into A, which is with regard to the cart. And so then you can add 1 and 2 so that the T and T get cancelled, and you get an equation with which you can find acceleration. You don't have to really memorize it, you have to understand the concept. So apparent weight of the man in the elevator. Elevator is going up, you know, the R minus mg is equal to m into A, R is equal to mg plus ma, which shows that the normal reaction is more. So if you supposing have a weighing machine below, this is going to show a greater weight because apparent weight is more. Now this is coming down. The second case is coming down. So then it's mg minus ma. Say it's mg minus R is equal to ma. So R is equal to mg minus ma, which shows the apparent weight is less. So if you keep a weighing machine under your feet, it will show lesser weight. And in the third case where it's not moving, the lift is not accelerating, A is equal to 0, which means R is equal to mg. Which means the lift is not moving, and So then at that position, if you see, the actual weight will be equal to apparent weight. Okay. So next is free falling. If it's going to have a free fall means the acceleration itself is going to become g. If a becomes equal to g, r is mg minus ma, and r itself is 0. And so then there is no normal reaction. You feel absolutely weightless while the body is freely falling. Here it is. Okay, so that's about this. So let's go next to identical billiard balls. Strike a rigid wall with the same speed but at different angles. Okay, one is making an angle 0. It's coming and going back here in rebounding like that. And initial velocity used, the final velocity is minus u. So then P final minus P initial is a momentum, and substitute, you get a value. But here it's making an angle 30 degree. So you have to break it down into components. As you see, can you see? The mu which comes is broken down into an mu cos theta and mu sin theta. A purple color mu cos theta and mu sin theta, and a blue color, the returning mu is getting broken down into mu cos theta and mu sin theta. And as you see that the vertical will get cancelled in P final minus P initial, only the horizontal will get added up finally. This is what it is. And the impulse will be in negative x direction, which is opposite to the direction of the incident ball, as you see. Okay, so then I hope you're all very clear. So then let's go to next. An elevator weighs 4000 kg when upward tension. Can you see T? It's going to go upward, is it? No, elevator weighs 4000 kg. The upward tension of the supporting cable is 48,000 newtons. What is upward acceleration? It's going to go up, which means T minus mg is equal to ma. And mg is all given. If you read the question further, you'll see that the body is weighing 4000. So mg is 4000 into 9.8. So substitute, you get the tension's value. T is also given. So they're asking acceleration. So it's very simple. Then with that acceleration, you can find how much distance is moved through. S is equal to ut plus half square. Does it say that initially is at 0? Does it say that it's initially at rest? Yeah, starting from rest, how far does it rise? Yes. So that's conservation of linear momentum. Linear momentum is always conserved. As I said, F is equal to dp by dt. When in the absence of external force, F is equal to 0. Differentiation of constant is what is 0. Therefore, P is conserved. P is always a constant. That shows the momentum is conserved. So then, let's look at this. What happens between a collision when two bodies are colliding? You consider A to be a bigger body. So then after collision, both of them goes in the same direction, acquiring velocity v1, v2. Initial velocities were u1 and u2, m1 and m2 masses. Okay. So you know that if AB is equal to minus FBA, they're going to exert equal and opposite force. This is the starting point to find conservation of momentum. If you don't write this, you can't be finding it. So P final minus P initial of the first body A, and the P final minus P initial for the second body B, and they both can be equated, juggled around with a negative sign, because FAB is equal to minus of FPA. If you forget that, you're gone. Juggle around, you get sum of the initial momentum is equal to sum of the final momentum. That is, momentum before collision is equal to momentum after collision. Then law of conservation of momentum. We have come across the total mass becomes, okay. You know that conservation of momentum, yeah, we saw about a static bomb which burst. It gets, initial momentum is 0, and then it's scattered in all directions. Some of the net momentum after scattering will also become 0. That's why it's scattering in all directions. We saw this. And we saw that when a person gets off the boat, when he moves forward to get down from the boat moves backward. That shows that because initially both of them were at rest. When it was stopped at the shore, both of them were at rest. So initial momentum of both of them are 0. So then the net final momentum will also have to be 0. So I hope you understood. You can read through the rest of the examples that I've given here. I'm sure you'll understand my handwriting. A 30 kg shell is flying at a 40 meter per second. When it explodes, this is what it is. It explodes into two pieces. A 30 kg becomes, one part is 18 kg. So the other part obviously is 12 kg. One comes to stop, the other is continuing to move. You have to find this velocity. So initial momentum is equal to final momentum. Initial momentum is this mass is 30 into 48 is equal to 18 into 0, the velocity, plus 12 into v, with which you can find v. Next is an IIT sum where a body of mass 1 kg initially at rest explodes and breaks into 3 fragments. It's not a school paper, but it's an IIT paper. 1:1:3, which shows that the first fragment is in the ratio 1:5. 1 by 5, 1 by 5 and 3 by 5. That's how you do ratio and proportion. And so then the two parts, equal masses, are flying off perpendicular to each other. So the two masses of equal masses are flying off perpendicular to each other, 1 by 5 and 1 by 5. 3 by 5, I don't know which direction is going in, but it's given that their velocities are this velocity 30 meter per second, this velocity 30 meter per second. Other mass, I know the mass is 3 by 5 ratio, but I do not know what is the velocity. I can assume it as v, and I can just calculate these two momentum. I can say that the third mass will have an equal and opposite momentum because the net momentum has to be 0. So find these two momentum. Yeah, this is, you see how I've done, and write the opposite value. The equal and opposite momentum will be the momentum of the third mass, and you know obviously the mass of it, which is 3 by 5, yeah, into velocity you don't know, is equal to this momentum that you found. Then equilibrium of concurrent forces. I've just converted them. That's about the forces acting at the same point. Is called concurrent forces, and I've converted into vectors, and you see that according to triangle law it's all becoming 0. Sum of all the forces acting at the same point becomes 0. So you can also prove it using Lami's theorem. I'm sure you understood Lami's theorem. I'm not going to explain it further. Lami's theorem is all about opposite force and the opposite angle are all proportional, ratios are proportional, and that completes this one video.